We need to talk. Is this book worth $34.99 as a PDF? This is a GM toolbox galore for Tales of the Valiant, and honestly, for anything adjacent to 5e. I think they really hit some solid marks here, and things that a lot of people have been asking for in Game Master books or Dungeon Master guides, whatever you want to call them, for the last, almost 2 decades. There hasn't been a lot of really good how to be a GM book that comes with a system. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying you need to gather them all to have a complete toolbox. And I feel like this book does one thing better than any other. They fucking listened and they delivered on all the things that people ask for to have in a Game Master's guide. So enough waxing poetic on what we want. Let's take a look at what we get for $34.99 as a PDF. I believe $59.99 for the actual book, and you combine those two together, and that's how you get the combined package of hardback and PDF. It is available now. I was given a preview copy, but you know that doesn't stop me from my honest opinions. So let's get some honesty. This book is a beast. It is 307 pages. I have a list on this screen that I want to talk about things that are important. Great art like always, but we're not here to talk art. We're here to talk about the toolbox. Oh, and the 5e druid that's from the movie that's getting pulled into the ground. Maybe that's just me. I saw it last time. I see it again this time. It's the same girl. We saw what you did. But with that, we get a lot. All your credits and everything you want in here are here. The table of contents is robust. Everything in the table of contents is hyperlinked. We'll talk more about hyperlinks later. I think that is really the one piece they are falling short on within this monster of a toolbox of a book. The introduction for this game, in this book, I should say, is fantastic. This does such a wonderful job of teaching you how to be a GM. A new GM or a veteran looking for some maybe things that you missed over the years, or you need a spark of influence as you are looking through these things. There is a lot in here on being a creator, being a director, event planner, and you can see a more detailed version of my walkthrough of this on the live stream that this is recorded of. I mean, it is a couple hours long, and we go through all 307 pages and dive into the nitty-gritty. But for you today, the short version, I want you just to look at the things that are highlighted as I am scrolling through these more important pieces. The GM lexicon is such a big piece. I think a lot of people miss teaching a GM on how to do that. This section on teaching what players are and what styles they are and what different kinds you'll see at the table and how to handle it and how to make their time fun at the table. Also, there's nothing wrong with asking what a player wants. You're creating a game with them, make it fun. Adventures in babysitting, anybody? I'm just saying. It sure looks like it to me. Should have been a hammer, but it's cool. And they break all these down, and then they get into getting started about how you facilitate fun, how you are asking players questions to make sure they're having fun, helping them finalize their characters. I will say, if you're going to this woman's house to play D&D and she has green torches on the wall, you're probably going to die there. It's just a thought, but it is a great art piece. Are those nachos? I wonder if those are nachos. If so, maybe I will visit. I'll take the death for some nachos. You have house rules in here, talking about when you need them, why to do them, how to prep a session. There's a checklist involved. And I gotta be honest, they really break down this process here through these pages on how to really make an adventure your first time, or if you're a veteran, maybe some things you've missed. When you should be using certain things, when you shouldn't. They also are really big throughout this entire book, talking about the pros and cons of each resource that you can use, from battle grids to theater of the mind to virtual tabletops. They give you an idea of what's good and what's bad for those scenarios. They talk about using a GM screen, snacks. I highlighted this because players should bring snacks for their GMs. I believe if they took the time to craft a story for you to have fun in, the least you do is bring some Doritos and some tacos. Always tacos if you play on Tuesday. There's no other exception. You have to bring them. But collaborative storytelling spoke about, you can see that they've listened to the indie scene as well while they were making this. And let's be honest. there is a lot that the 5e industry can learn from the new movement of OSR and the new movement of the indie scene and how it has grown, how clocks have been added to so many games because of Apocalypse World and Blades in the Dark and the mastery of those. But we've also seen in OSR how less is more. By providing tables and providing inspiration, you actually get more than a shit ton of paragraphs on how to do something. This is a 5e book, or 5e adjacent book, using Tales of the Valiant, because Cobalt Press has been publishing 5e stuff for as long as 5e has been around. But because of that, they have kept that flow of giving a lot of information. And this book is made to be read, and I think picked apart, and tools are made to be pulled and used as you go through. I don't think the goal is to simply read it from front to back and take all of it in and know what's going on. They're trying to teach you things like how to wrap up a session and how to handle player death in a game. But there's a few things that they hit up on in here, and specifically, I think it starts around 33. After we've talked about how to be a GM, it really comes back to one important thing: teaching you how to build a world. World building is such a big part of a GM's job, and it is something that a GM doesn't know how to do unless they're shown. You can learn it, sure, from reading adventures and articles, and you can learn it from watching actual plays. But the process, the important process, as someone who's worked in design and in project management, the process is the proof of how to do it. And here, they give you that process in world design. And at the end of the book, they even show you some more like deep dive and expanded versions of books they have on how to create your own world. Not word. We all create words. But show and tell is big. Don't just spew information. Show them in game the things that you have built. Let them interact with it. The idea of spiral world building, when I was at Cobalt Press, we did an entire show on how to design Micro and the Next Horizon out. There's some really good stuff in here on collaborative world building, things that you can do to make it your own and also make your players have skin in the game. My favorite section here, as someone who has secret time, is the types of secrets and clues that you can use in a game, how to use them to reveal things or to use them as rewards. I highly believe that PC should all give you one secret about their character that they can get to release into the game on their own that impacts the world. But these are some great pieces in here that they give you on how to do it. And they don't talk about this normally. And they even give you names and locations and things like that to build your world. Like, I am fast scrolling through this, but they break down customs, where you live, languages, types of cities, environments, governments, religions, you name it, they gave it to you here. And this takes me into what I think most GMs are probably going to come looking for, which is advanced combat. Advanced combat rules are a pretty good chunk of this book, but not a lot. They keep it clean. You're going to see a lot of things from other 5e publishers that all think in the same line, along with the old 4th E stuff in Advanced Combat. Advanced Combat covers a few pages, but they talk about mapping the battlefield, choosing the right styles for combat. This, again, is that whole idea of battle grid versus theater of the mind. Really the two modes of play that I think a lot of us use when we're running games without labeling it. They break it down and tell you the advantages of how it works and the disadvantage. See what you did there, Cobalt Press. You kept your terms and used them to describe this stuff too. Good job. I think that's smart. And as you go through, they even give you what I think is the highlight of this section. Adjudicating areas of effect, where if it's theater of the mind, you just hit so many creatures when you use AoE things. This page alone is a great resource, and it should be on the GM screen, because I think a lot of GMs go between theater of the mind and battle grid, and this makes spellcasting such a usable piece in theater of the mind. It's honestly in my top 3 things in this book. They show you templates. We're all used to that. They talk about no need for prep and how to do it. They talk about combat and counter building, and it's expanded. We all lived through 3.0. Well, I shouldn't say all. a lot of us, 3.0, 3.5, the hangovers of that into the Pathfinder, into 5e, and we want to talk about 4th Encounter budget building is hard, and it's never really been done well. People like Sly Flourish have tried to take over and show us new ways to do it, but I gotta say, what they did for TOV for encounter budget building is so good. While it is partially based on balance, it's really based on the fact that you just don't want to go too far one way or the other, but your players in a high fantasy game are going to have ways to handle these solutions. So if you look here, in encounter building, they even give you encounter templates. They also talk about doing zones of combat, like in a volcanic summit. They break down bosses and bodyguards and bosses and minions. And then they even just draw an rough outline of a map and teach you how to use zones for your combat sessions. Instead of worrying about every little square, you can just check off things on here. Honestly, down the side of this, I just have boxes to check off for when people encounter them. They talk about handling bosses and why one solo bosses don't always work, why twins or triples may be a better idea. It really does work well. And they even have hordes and rivals and things like that in this book that I don't feel like you see everywhere. They bring back siege weapons. There's a whole chapter. And this here is where I want to talk about hyperlinking. This is probably my biggest flaw for this book. When I'm getting a digital book, and there is a style of design that a lot of us use where you're using a 2-page spread to kind of have a control panel for things. It's harder to do in 5e, but what isn't hard to do is add hyperlinks to your book. You did it for your table of contents. You can Control F search it. There's a lot of things in the back end with InDesign you can do. You can even tell it to link it every time. You can pull up the links that are available with the script and just link certain ones. But when you mention a chapter in something like siege weapons, and you're telling me to go to chapter 7, when like right now I'm in chapter 4, and I can't put my fingers in the book to bookmark those chapters to flip back and forth, having hyperlinks makes this so much easier, especially when you're on a phone or a tablet and you're not on a computer. You didn't do that extra mile, but you're asking that extra mile from us by putting a price tag of $34.99. I think when these kind of things are overlooked, it really makes the buyer question, do I want to spend that much for it? It's just something to think about. Maybe if you do an update to this book and you put something out and you tell everybody, hey, we hyperlinked the entire book. We heard you. Everything is hyperlinked now. I think those kind of things will help people bite that $34.99 price tag. That's my biggest complaint so far, getting into where we currently are in the book, which is in that encounter budgeting and stuff like that. We're going to go into another area that I think they kind of missed the mark on here as we go from front to back in this book. So let's check that out too. In here, we got a bunch of variant rules, and I do love some of these. They brought back Bloodied from 4th edition. I think a lot of us use that terminology. It's one of the good things that came out of it. And you'll see other things they brought back, like skill challenges and stuff like that. And everyone's kept rituals from 4th edition. There were good things in 4th edition. It just wasn't good as a package. These new called shot rules are cool, and the new Bloodied rules are also cool. Where it falls short yet again for me is Doom. Doom and Luck are the two mechanics that TOV added when they were polishing their 5e stuff and all the things they've made to the really mirrored finish that they have. Doom is this resource that the GMs get to use to do stuff. And during the Black Flag playtesting, it had a lot more flexibility in things you could do. I expected Doom to be a page or two, or when I got to the monster section of this book, which is robust and amazing, that I would see new ways to use Doom and build things. But instead, we get a column, and some of these rules are good. They kind of remind me of legendary actions, but what's missing is things specific for like oozes and dragons. And sure, they may put it out later, but in a game where you introduced a new mechanic, I want more of it now in this book. I don't want it later. It is a mechanic that can be grown upon a lot, but it would have been wonderful to see some monster-specific options, specifically in the monster building section, which is fucking wonderful. That's my belief. They do add some like dirty tactics and things like that in here that are really good. Overrun, tumble rules, things we've seen for years, using skills to accomplish things that you normally can't do. They also talk about hitting cover and adding injuries in and Morale. Morale is really important when you're fighting certain kind of monsters. These are all extra pieces that you can, add in. You don't have to. But when we get into the next part, which is pretty cool, we start getting into more how to handle encounters and how to build encounters. And they do it based on areas and like travel. And they really dive into advanced exploration in chapter 5. And these advanced exploration rules contain so much. And I know the portals has to do with their new setting, which I'm excited, and the planar roads. I mean, you got a whole page on that. More than that, as you go through with different storms for areas you're in. They brought corruption over from, obviously, the Book of Ebon Tides. That is involved as well. The Shadow Thrall, the air travel, all of this is amazing. The world travel stuff is awesome. And the water one, I think, really excels with seaborne stuff, how to handle it. But then we hit the true masterpiece of this section, which is teaching GMs dungeons. And man, do they actually teach it. They talk about running dungeons, the dungeon keys, the 4 questions you ask yourself when you're developing, no matter the size of a dungeon. They give you a key to use. They talk about what their sample would be if they're building it. And then they give you table upon factions and things to roll to build your own dungeon. I think I noted it here somewhere. The dungeon thing is like 11 pages, 19 pages for crafting dungeons. 19 pages. This is amazing and is a great reflection of their other series of products that they have, Cities and Towns, and their new Ruins book coming out as well. But look at this. This is crazy. This is such a great resource for not just 5e, but anyone building dungeons, 5 room or more, on what to do. It even has the motivations of monsters in here. I don't know, this excited me a lot. I think this is missing for new GMs, and I think this book really hammers it home and gives you all the tools you need to be a successful GM. Also, I want to know why this statue's this way. What the fuck happened? That person's crawling out from underneath. Something went wrong. I would like to know why and more. I just would. So this is the dungeon section. I think it's really good. I think they nail it. Without going through a lot of it, you're going to see some puzzles. They revisit traps, and they give you some more stuff on traps. The next big page thing, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. There's a lot in between, but a 307-page book, we're not going to go through it all. I think they really hit home on adventuring options, with also one of my favorite pieces of art in here. Adventuring options are what make each adventure feel different, and I do think that a lot of people miss how to do this. But they break down new curses, disease, hazards, and traps. And let me tell you, some of these curses are awesome. The way they handle werewolves or lycanthropy is fucking simple genius. And it is so good that it makes it into an entire story arc on its own, and one that works. Also, one of my favorite pieces in here, so remember that. But this is a great section in here. And I think that this is where they're really kind of showcasing what you can do with their system with just a few simple rules. And we can go through this, and it keeps going, and there's a lot of stuff here. But I think the next thing I would want to hit is they talk about downtime, which is super cool. Crafting magical items with new crafting tables. And remember, the player's book gave us prices, right? Prices on doing this. But they talk about potion crafting and everything else. They bring in dread rules. I'm a big fan of this kind of stuff. I love running horror. But they talk about accruing dread and what it does. And there's short-term, long-term, and permanent versions. Minus that these are on separate pages. I would like to have seen all the tables on one, but that's just me. And then you got firearms. Someone in the audience talked about how good the firearms are in this. And I will say I love the exploding die for damage. I like that they give you different categories of growth of this technology, how involved you want it to be. And by giving rules, they give the okay to not only have them in your game, but also to make it so that you and your players can speak the same language about the firearms, which I think is super fun. And I think it's needed. And I like firearms in a game. I run a soul punk Victorian horror setting with case ammo and revolvers, similar to the rifle that you see here. Super great piece. I think they kind of nail it home here. And I think that everyone should have this. So as we get through firearms, they also take us into artifacts. They talk about expanded artifacts in this next section. Lore, they give us a sample of a bunch of artifacts. You can watch the full video if you'd like to really see all of the artifacts, rewards. There is a piece in expanded vehicles I want to touch on. Artifacts and rewards are great. Just not enough time in this video to really dive in. The link, I think, is down below for the live show that we did. But let's see here. Expanded vehicles on 185. I'll take us back over to look at this. What I like is vehicles are commonly used, but the rules aren't there. We all saw Spelljammer come out, and they gave us dungeons, but no Spelljammer how to do space combat. They give us vehicles. Their core book gives us vehicle combat, and this expands upon it and gives us even more for vehicles. And they really dive into a bunch of different styles of vehicles, how they work, what they are. But this one here takes the cake. The Kobold Crawler. Could you imagine a bunch of kobolds going through the city with these things? They can drop fire barbs. They can drop off of walls and do damage. The thing has bite, and it can carry a ton of little kobolds in here as it travels across. Such an amazing piece. I'm super excited that this got added, and I think this is like top 3 new pieces that really made me happy. Other people will have some, and if you do have this, what are you excited about in this book? I'm going to do the classic thing and say put it down below, but remember, I actually answer questions, so put something down below. Let me know what you like in the book if you've got it, or if you saw something in the live stream. This is great. I think they needed to do it. I think that all the vehicles in here are a great addition. Hello, World of Warcraft, anybody? And I think that they needed to do more of these kind of things. With other companies needed to do this, and I think they did it. And they added more variant rules, and these are rules that everybody wants. The chase rules are sexy. They remind me of Paizo mixed with the new Blade Runner stuff. They talk about running a chase and tracking progress. I will say, I would like a cheat sheet in the back of this book that I could print for any of these kind of new mechanics you have, even if they were all on one page and I could print them. Or even better, if you were to go put them on your blog, Cobalt Press, and give us some cool tracking sheets, because everybody likes to be able to print stuff and track them. Form fillable, that's an extra win, right? But they go through and break it down, and they give you player advice on handling chase scenes and how to do them. This was another one of those moments where I was really happy to see it. And they even struck the chord and went out and found things that other people have been making and building, like monster harvesting, and they boiled it down into this elegant, simple page-and-a-half solution for using monster parts for crafting. And maybe it's 3 pages, because they do talk about potions and spell components and things like that. Skill challenges are back, baby. It's one of the best things from 4th edition. They talk about the setup, defining them, complexity, and how to use them. If you haven't used a skill challenge in your game, I highly recommend using skill challenges as part of long travel, or going through a house, or traveling through a city that's under attack to get from point A to point B, instead of doing round to round. It lets your players have narrative moments and really pass-fail scenarios of success, or complexity of diving through an alley without moving square by square. It works really well, and it is one of the best things from 4th edition, and it is a holdover that I think that a lot of companies use, but no one's ever going to say that's where it comes from. They're just not. The next section in chapter 8, and I'm skipping some chapters so you can kind of look through them on your own or watch the video. They talk about Homebrewer's Toolbox. This is important. We watched D&D try to take homebrew away from D&D Beyond, and they also, and there's a lot of really good videos on this. If I find them, I'll link them below, but they talk about this with Games Workshop and for D&D, where they don't want you doing things on your own. For example, Games Workshop just makes terrain now, but they used to have sections teaching you how to make terrain, but now they just want you to buy theirs, so they're not going to teach you anymore. And D&D had things like this back in the day, which taught you how to make monsters and do home rules and make something that's yours, but they took them away because they'd rather have you buy theirs. And everyone doesn't make homebrew rules. Only people who want them make them. But helping people and giving them the okay, yes, you can make homebrew, and putting it in your book is such a great practice that, I don't know, this made me really excited to see. It's a short section, it's not long, but they talk good principles about why you would design new ones, how to create new lineage, I also agree with one of the people who were in chat. I want this lineage, heritage, whatever this is. This is dope. That's some Swamp Thing stuff right here, and it makes me happy. But they talk about creating them, creating backgrounds, creating subclasses, and they even break down creating subclasses by each class. This is super important. Trying to balance a class is one of the hardest things you can do, and them giving you the guidelines of do's and don'ts was really smart. And they do it again here when you're creating magical items, and they give you a step-by-step process for creating them. Not hard. They've got obviously experience in doing it because they make magical items, but then they're handing it off to the people who have this book. And they're even doing it for people creating artifacts. They're giving you the ways to do it, creating spells with their new spell system that's been kind of refined. They give you the, yes, go make your own, but also here's the step-by-step on how to do it so you don't feel like you're fumbling or fucking up everything. It was really smart. And they do that for numerous other things in this section, teaching you how to create stuff. But then we hit the big boy. We hit the mother lode. 19 pages for creating dungeons was amazing. I think that was a feat that was needed for new GMs, but I don't think it's nearly as big of a feat as the king of the kobolds, as Kobold Press has been known for having monster book after monster book that has just been fucking awesome. And they even went back and redid the original one to update it to new rules, because it was one of the first ones they made, and everyone's learned so much over the time frame of 5e being out or publishing things for Pathfinder. But starting on 213, there is one monster I'm going to hit on, but they give us 34 pages on how to make monsters. And one really, really, really good piece that I believe, personally, is something that should be on the GM screen. We'll get into that as we scroll through this quickly. They have creating monsters, modifying stat blocks, and then from here down, they just give you tables on traits, names, how to do it, and then they give you templates and how to alter your CR, all within that new economy of their budgeting that they do. And they talk about using templates. And if you remember templates from, I think it was Monster Manual 2, the green book, they had like half golems in it and stuff. It's where my Claglins came from. They break down making different monsters based on these awesome templates that you just kind of plug and play and turn things into other things, which is, all monsters are just filing serial numbers. I mean, in the word of Knave from Ben, if you don't know what it is, use an owlbear. That's kind of what they're doing here. And they're teaching you how to make, like an example, elf were-elk. How to make all these things that make your time better and to make your monsters better. And they even bring back that little hint of the different styles of leader, controller, striker, things that we saw that made sense in 4th edition that they kept and brought back over, because the monster manual for 4th edition, I'm going to say it, was fucking good. I do agree with MCDM about that. It was a great monster manual. So as we scroll through, I'm just going to hotbox, like just quickly hot scroll through all this. I almost said hotbox, I'm not smoking. Storytelling through that being a hobgoblin through colors, sword breakers, there's so much. But this one here is the one I want to stop on. And then you can go look at this stuff on your own. The Threadbound Death Dog is a CR1 creature that has so much flavor, not only in the art, but in the things that it does, that there is no way you shouldn't be using this in your game. It's got an entire thing of traits and talents to give you a breakdown in a one-page synopsis of something that I personally believe is an amazing way to handle making new monsters. They crushed it. There are many more pages of this that you can scroll through when you pick it up. I'll put a link down below for buying it. We're going to go into the last part of this, and this is where I like a lot, but also think the extra mile could have been done. I think they saw what they needed to do, but in the end, they missed the mark a little bit for me. The creature design sheet, by the way, I will tell you, it's an entire sheet that has the CR, the proficiency bonus, the AC, the HP, the attack bonus, the damage, and the saves for level a CR of 0 to 30. It should be a sheet that you put in every GM screen or have on you at every time. That is something I don't want to show on screen because I believe that was a lot of work, and I personally think people should get the PDF to get it. I showed it off. If you want to trudge through the live stream, that's up to you. But right here, right now, I'd rather have you pick it up on your own if you like what you've heard so far. Again, I'm not supported by them, but I want to support the work of amazing people making amazing stuff for an amazing community of players. The next thing we have is encounter tables, an entire appendix of encounter tables. And they kind of do this in a different fashion. They handle the areas with D12 rolls and the tier you are. They've broken down, I think it's 5 tiers by level of a player. Like level 1 is, I think, 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. And they break all these down and they literally go through each and every I'm just going to hold down. They go through every section of this book and they just put page after page after page after page after page after page of encounter by tier type that you can use in your games to get whatever you want out of it. And there's some great ones in here. They added farmland, which made me super excited to see. And then we get into the next appendix after this. I think we got to get all the way through urban. And then they got this one, random campaign dressing. What a great title. But this is all the charts for like rolling instant towns and stuff, which is great, and treasures and trinkets. It's fun. And then they spent the time, and I think this, I didn't highlight it. I should have. I'm going to now. This is one of the most important pieces. We all look for inspiration as we are making stuff. And the crew and team and all the kobolds and people they work with, I'm sure all added to this. This is a list of suggested favorites from within the Kobold Warrens. And a reader, it was not easy to limit ourselves to the arbitrary number. So, they're no means complete. And they went through and listed all the books that they enjoy. I shouldn't say all, a lot of the books that they enjoy. A lot of the films and TV shows. Then they even went into video games that inspired what they build and how they play, and nonfiction. And then we hit the section that hurts my soul the most. Look, this book is a toolbox masterpiece for every GM. And there's a lot in here. There's 307 pages you have to navigate digitally in a PDF. Physically, you can bookmark. Digitally, it's harder. You can open up that sliding tray bookmark, but we all know on a phone, on a tablet, on my computer, those are not good. Being able to be there and to minimize the amount of clicks that are necessary to take me from one point to another is the key. And for all my fans here who know, Hyperlink DRINK is a thing. I can't do it in this book because there's not enough of it. This index is beautiful. It has everything that we need in it, but not a single thing in this version that I currently have as of October 2nd, 2024 is hyperlinked. None of this is hyperlinked. I can't click any of it. This is such a disservice to the digital user at the price point of $34.99. Now, I'm not saying it's a break. I'm not saying don't buy this book because there's no hyperlinks. I do believe that maybe splurging for the hardback copy might be better for a lot of people than it would be buying the digital version right now. If they go back and hyperlink, even if it's just this section, in anywhere that has a chapter, like check chapter 7, and they hyperlink those things, I think that really does help meet the value they're asking for. This is art light. It is information and teaching heavy with what I would consider 101 to 102 to some masterclass stuff in the monster section. But not having this hyperlinked is very hard to swallow for me. They do give you some cool things at the end to look at. I agree with all of these. These books here are fantastic. Get your hands on them if you don't have them. Cities and Towns, Castles and Crowns, Dungeons and Ruins, which I don't think is out yet, but they do help build campaigns to last. That is a great tagline for it. And of course, Tales of the Valiant. If you don't have the core set, pick it up. If you liked 5e and you don't want to dive into 2024, I'm gonna be honest, there's nothing in 5e I can't convert to Tales of the Valiant. And if I'm gonna play 5e and run 5e, and I'm not running a grimdark SHADOWDARK game, this is honestly the 5e I'm gonna run. It just sings, and it sings well. And it could sing louder with a few more hyperlinks. That's it for this today. I hope you guys enjoy it. Check out the guide. Links are down below. And then if you are here live for the chat, stick around. If you're not, on this side and this side, there's gonna be things to click. We're trying to hit our 500. Videos like this, I hope, help you understand if you need to buy something. If you have questions about the product or you have a favorite part, put it down below. But until then, everybody, like I always say, watch, listen, learn, be a better gamer. And most of all, hyperlink your shit.